September 9th, 2021. This is the Board of Selectmen meeting or the newly reconstituted Select Board meeting, pardon me. Good evening, everyone. Our first agenda item are a couple of event requests. First up is a request by the American Cancer Society to hold the 2021 Bicycles Battling Cancer Ride to come through Bolton on Saturday, September 25th, 2021. Mark Walter. Mr. Walter, I see you're here. You want to just give us a quick update?
Yes, well, thanks for having me again. Yes, we are once again looking to produce our Bicycles Battling Cancer charity ride with the American Cancer Society. We've been doing this for about 10 years now, and typically this event is in June, but because of the events of the last year was canceled, and the organization made a decision this year to move the event to September. So the event's coming up on Saturday, September 25th, so the timing is a little different. The other notable change is that the venue has been moved from Marlborough to Lancaster. However, the route through Bolton is the same, but it's just the timing that'll be a little bit different.
Okay.
So I have shared with the police chief the course map. He has given approval, and all that's really left is your approval, and then to call in the police detail request.
Okay. Well, I mean, as long as you've gotten Chief Nelson's okay, I'm fine with it. I don't have any questions. Same as before, so that works for me. Gentlemen, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay, then I will take a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the 2021 Bicycles Battling Cancer for Saturday, September 25th.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Roll call, Sikansky,
Aye.
Keep,
Aye.
Wysocki.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Pleasure. Good luck on the event.
Thank you very
Next
much.
up is a request by Bikes Not Bombs to use Bolton Roads as part of the 34th annual Bikeathon set for Sunday, September 2nd, which is this coming weekend. Angela Finney. Do we have an Angela Finney in the audience? I
do not see her.
Okay, well, I guess, do we know if they have gone before the police department, i.e. the chief, to get his okay on this?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess that's the defining authority for these. Gentlemen, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, I'll
I'm
take
fine.
a motion to approve.
I move we approve the bicycle ride for Bikes Not Bombs on September 12th, Sunday.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Roll call, Sikansky,
Aye.
Keep,
Aye.
Wysocki.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. Next up is a request from the Bolton Access Television for the release of Q2 funds in the amount of $25,073.25.
Hello there.
Hello, Nikki. How are you?
Good. I'm multitasking today, which is why you don't have my video.
That's okay.
So we are requesting the release for our Q2 funds. As has been the trend, it's about 3% down. But we are kind of excited because we have a fundraising campaign in the works for probably late October. We're putting that together. It's got a fun video that goes along with it, compliments of our good president, Mr. Troop, and hopefully it will be kind of a fun thing.
Good. That's great. That's great. All right, then. Do I have a motion to approve releasing the funds?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Roll call, Sikansky,
Aye.
Keep,
Aye.
Wysocki.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Nikki. And yeah, looking forward to the fundraising.
Yeah, it should be a fun fundraising video.
Good. Thank you. Have a nice night. Okay, next up on our agenda, we have a couple of lawn sign requests. The first is a request from the Bolton Community Fund for approval of lawn signs for the 5K race to be held on October 8th, 2021. And also a review of the revised route. Lisa Sheppel and Mary Jo White. Do we have those folks in our audience?
Yep, I'm here. Mary Jo is not here, but I'm here. Yeah, we changed the route a little bit to make it a little easier, not to be on Aquatic. So we're just going down West Berlin, going down that stretch of Sawyer Road. So it'll be a little easier.
Cool, cool. And I would assume that you've gotten the okay from Chief Nelson?
Yep, and he said this is much easier too. He was fine with it.
Great,
Yeah.
super. Gentlemen, any questions?
No questions.
And then we
Fantastic.
just
Okay.
want to say okay with the signs.
Yeah, we're fine. We're fine. I think that's fine. That's fine.
All right,
We're
thank
fine
you.
with the signs and we're fine with the revised route. So do I have a motion to approve both?
So
I
moved.
move we approve the use of lawn signs and the revised route for the Boston Community Fund 5K.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Roll call, Sikansky,
Aye.
Keep,
Aye.
Waisaki.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Appreciate you
Thanks.
stopping in.
Thank
Great.
you.
Next up is a request from Bolton Harvard Open Studios to put out signs 2 weeks in advance of their event scheduled for October 2nd and 3rd, 2021. Ann Gillespie, do we have Ann in the audience? Maybe not.
I don't see her.
Okay. Do we know how many signs they are asking for and where these signs are going?
I do know that they are going in private residences and that they've done this in the past and they've been approved. So they're just advertising for their open studios in Harvard and
Okay.
Bolton.
Yeah, I've seen that before, so I'm fine with all that. Gentlemen, any questions?
I
No
would just move that the number of signs should not exceed last year's. Does that seem reasonable?
Sure.
Well,
Do we know how
they
many
might
those
have
are?
more members. They might have more members that are opening their studios to visits.
Okay. So
Well, I
I'll
mean,
just-
yeah, I think it's akin to, signs voting for political office, and it's we don't necessarily regulate the number. It's only be out for 2 weeks, and they're going to go away. I don't really have a problem with it. And it's a good cause.
Okay, so I'll move that we approve the use of signs for the Bolton Harvard Open Studios.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Roll call, Sikansky,
Aye.
Keep,
Aye.
Waisaki.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is a request from the fire EMT department to maintain a second ambulance after the delivery of the new ambulance. Chief Legendre.
Good evening.
Hey, Chief, how are you?
Good yourself, sir.
Good, thank you. So
So
you want to give us a little update?
absolutely. So as you know, we have signed a contract with Braun Ambulance after the town meeting of this year to purchase a replacement ambulance for the current 7A. Upon getting a trade-in value of $10,000, I wanted to do an assessment if there was a possibility, feasibility of maintaining the second ambulance as a backup or a second ambulance. Currently, right now, we are 255 calls ahead of last year's call volume. And I only continue to see that increase if we have some of the projects that have been broadcast to move into town, particularly on Main Street. So putting together some numbers, we're looking at roughly about, excuse me, really, go over my notes here. $5,000 additional in year number one. We're gonna have to purchase additional equipment, a stair chair, some medical supplies to staff the second one. This would include annual recertification through OEMS, average fuel cost, insurance, etc., for maintenance. But on a breakdown of call volume, if this ambulance does roughly 4 calls a year, it will pay for itself. So having the call volume go up, we're seeing more back-to-back ambulance calls, mutual aid requests, which is leaving our town without an ambulance, but it's part of the mutual aid pact that we have with our neighboring communities. But instead of having mutual aid come in, we'd be able to handle the second call. If we have an ambulance go down for maintenance, or as we experienced back in April, an accident, we were without our ambulance for a month. Luckily, we were able to borrow Lancaster's ambulance, but if that went out, we would have been without an ambulance. So this is, I think, something we need to really look at, and here's the opportunity with the trade-in value of only being given $10,000 for an ambulance that is in still good condition. It'll last as a backup for at least 3 to 5 years.
Chief, I first saw the proposal yesterday. The numbers look good. It's interesting, and it seems like you thought through all the issues that I could think of. It just, as I said, I only saw the proposal for the first time yesterday, and I would just like more time to go over it and consider it. I don't have any objections to anything I saw. I'm just asking if we can have more time to review the proposal.
That would be fine. This would not need to be made until the second ambulance comes in. We're expecting delivery of the new ambulance anywhere from the end of this month to the middle of next month. It is not included as part of the deal, the bottom number. So we do have time.
Okay. Is that all right with Stan and Jonathan?
Yep, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
While you're here, Chief Legendre, I just had a question. You mentioned your calls are up by 250 in the last year, and I just wondered how you think that's related to COVID or not.
I'm not going to say it's zero. We have seen an increase, but I don't think it's a drastic increase to the overall call volume. It's as we predicted with adding the paramedic service. Just last month, we responded to 34 out of town paramedic responses. So we're continuing to see that number go up as well, which when we brought this program online, we thought was going to happen. But the overall response to the ambulance is up as well. And it's not particular to COVID patients. It is overall. Yes, there are some in there, but it's not an overwhelming demographic to alter the percentages.
So excuse my ignorance, but so do we have a vehicle for the paramedics and then a vehicle for the EMT, or that's one vehicle for the combined service?
Currently, right now, we have a class 1 ambulance, which is your classic ambulance transports a patient.
Mm-hmm.
A class 5 ambulance that is set up for our mutual aid that is a non-transport. That was to not send our ambulance out of town to a mutual aid request from Lancaster, Harvard, etc. A patient transport. What we're seeing now is multiple calls within our town, and we can still only transport one patient at one call. So this would allow for a second call simultaneously to be handled, or a multi-patient incident such as an MVA on 495 that we could handle ourselves.
Thank you.
No, I think taking a look at the proposal in more detail is fine, but Chief, you do remember that when you came before us about adding a warrant article for a new ambulance, we specifically asked you about the disposition of the current ambulance. And at that time, you said that you had no plans to keep the second ambulance.
That is correct, sir. And between the time of the proposal, which was back in November, and today, we have projects ahead of us. We've had extended times the ambulance has been out of service. We've had call volume go up. So things have changed. The picture has changed in the
Okay.
past year since we talked.
Okay. So what about the equipment that's in the old fire station? Because you are saying you will put the ambulance there. So where would the equipment that's in the old fire station go?
There is actually a spot. A lot of it has been cleaned out by members. There was old aging materials in there, wood, etc. Has been removed, and there's actually enough room as it stands right now to back that ambulance into that station.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. Let's take a look at the proposal and we can circle back at the next meeting.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, next up on our agenda is an update from the Animal Control Officer, Phyllis Tower, on the order for the dangerous dog at 79 Lancaster Road. Phyllis?
Hi, how you doing?
Good, Phyllis, yourself?
I'm good, thank you.
Can you give us an update at the dangerous dog situation at 79 Lancaster Road?
Yes, I had several emails back and forth with Monica, and we were making progress. She had a picture of a kennel she wanted to get. We talked about the flooring and the roofing in it. And when we got to the part of discussing that it needed a small piece in the front, kind of like an entryway, so that when you step in there with a dog, close the door, you can't lose the dog when you open the door to the next, to put the dog in the kennel. Conversations stopped. She disagreed that I think that it needed to get done, and it was in the minutes. And so as far as I can see, it should get done. I haven't heard from her again until I let her know about the meeting tonight, and she thanked me for letting her know that it was tonight. I haven't seen a kennel at the house. I haven't seen any progress there because it seemed to have stopped. She did let me know that she has signed up for a training class as she was supposed to.
So any other
Okay.
information you can provide in this situation or for this particular dangerous dog situation that we're having right now?
I'm having a really hard time with volume.
No, I asked Mr.
Apologize.
Lowe if he has anything to add.
Mr. Chair, if I might be able to offer something to the board.
Sure.
It's Attorney Jessica Murphy representing the town. The town was contacted by counsel for Ms. Danaher raising a question about what the order contained. The order contained language that mirrored the statute, but did not, in transcribing the terminology, did not include the double gate requirement that the board had voted on.
Mhm.
So one of the issues before the board tonight, and I understand that the issue of the double gate is cost prohibitive. And that's the reason that the owner has not proceeded forward. This is the information I obtained from counsel, that the reason was because cost prohibitive. There are kennels and things out there that otherwise meet the statutory requirements except for the double gate. So wanted to clarify the issue of the double gate before moving forward. And where it does not appear in the town's order, I recommend to the board that it take one of two options, either to enforce the order as written, which does not require the double gate. That is more consistent with the statutory formulation. The second option would be to vote to amend the order to be consistent with the voted decision, which required two gates. And in doing so, would likely provide another opportunity for appeal, which I understand is something that the dog owner may wish to pursue at that point.
Gentlemen of the board, if I may, my name is Attorney Taylor Dogsavage, and I am counsel for the Danaher family. And I have been in contact with Attorney Murphy as well, as it relates to the structure that's written in the order that was issued by the board. My clients have identified a structure that complies with your written order and decision, that they were able to locate. The ACO was nice enough to point them in the direction of Tractor Supply store that has dog kennels that meet the specifications per your order. They've identified that structure. They did email the ACO with a link to that structure so that the ACO could take a look at it ahead of their purchasing it. The structure itself is a cost of $279. It doesn't have a floor. So they're going to place plywood as a floor for the structure so that they don't have to dig it 2 feet down, and then they'll attach the plywood with the L brackets to secure the floor to the actual structure itself. If they were to order that structure, which it's all been kind of up in the air since the prior hearing, because when they sent the structure to the ACO, she had started indicating that there was a second entrance requirement, but again, it's not in the written decision. So if they were to order the structure that they located today that complies with the specs in the written decision, Tractor Supply has indicated that's something that they could receive per shipment in 2 to 3 days. Once that's received, they could obtain the plywood for the floor, the L brackets right from Home Depot. The structure could be up in 1 to 2 weeks. What's holding everything up is the question insofar as the second entrance is concerned. They can't find a kennel that even complies with the second entrance requirement. Tractor Supply does not have them. They contacted themselves, the Danaher family contacted Tractor Supply and the manufacturer of the kennel that they were able to identify, and they don't have kennels with second entrances either. So if the second entrance is going to be required, it's going to pose a bit of a problem, and it's going to take my clients even longer to get the structure up. I will point out this incident that led to this unfortunate event occurred back in Memorial Day weekend of this year. From Memorial Day weekend of this year in 2021, there have been no further incidents with this dog. My clients have obviously taken very seriously, and I also noticed from the meeting minutes, they were very apologetic, and that is exactly how they feel. They simply want to comply with the written decision that was issued by the board and just get the structure up, because at the moment there is no structure in the backyard. They've got the muzzle, they've got the leash that complies with the order. They've signed the dog up for additional training per the order. The last piece to this puzzle is that structure and all of the misinformation about it relative to it not being in the written decision. So if the board would leave the order the way that it is, they can order the structure and have it up at most 2 weeks, likely a week.
Okay, there's a couple of questions that I have.
Sure.
I'm assuming we have the statutory authority to request a second door. Is that in question or not?
Are you asking me?
I'm
sorry.
asking anyone who's a trained lawyer.
Our counsel.
So I will say that the statute does not, the statute enumerates things that the board must select one or more of for a dangerous dog. The town has selected one or more of those options. Nothing within the fencing requirement speaks to gates at all. So the statute is silent on that. Because the board has the authority to order a dog to be put down if it is a dangerous dog, is our position that the board can order something less than that. And again, where the statute does not speak to what types of gates are required, whether it's 1, whether it's 2, whether it's gates on every side, that is something that the statute has left silent. In this manner, I think that the board has made a reasonable request for this, given the way the dog left the property and was able to get to the neighbor's property and unfortunately kill the neighbor's dog. So I think it would be a reasonable assessment. I will say that unfortunately, since the statute changed in 2012, there has been not a lot of published decisions about the scope of the board's authority. So it is something that has been unaddressed, I think, in any published court decision.
Okay. And
Which from my
I just have
perspective,
to, pardon me?
sorry, which from my perspective is ripe for appeal if in the event the board's going to do that, as I've indicated to Jessica, because the statute has very clear language about the specifications associated with the structure, and the board's decision is literally copy and pasted right out of the statute. So the structure that they're looking to obtain complies with the statutory language and the authority that the board has in ordering the structure requirement.
Well, it doesn't in one respect, in that you're not burying the fence. You're having a plywood floor. So, that raises a question for me, for Phyllis. Does that sound humane, having a plywood floor in an outdoor fenced area for a dog?
My concern was, would it be sanitary? How would you clean it?
Yeah, that's part of it. Like, there's urine, feces. How do you clean that out of plywood? How big is this? How big is the enclosure we're talking
Yeah,
about?
I'm completely unfamiliar with these purchase structures for this. My vision was that the family was going to put a fence up around the yard with all of these features. So the idea that there's a structure involved here is a surprise to me. And I'm just saying, I just don't understand how this fits into the solution.
So the structure requirement pursuant to the statute, it has to have 4 sides and it needs to have a roof. So it can't just be a fence that goes around the perimeter. It's not that simple. So once a structure is ordered, it needs to have a rooftop to it, a closed-in roof, if you're going to make it similar to the fence around the sides. And it also, if you're not going to have a roof, that's the one that they identified has a sun top that's held on by 25 like super sturdy zip ties at the top for shade for the animal while it's in the structure. If you're not going to have that, then you need to provide a dog house for the dog inside of the structure. So it's not as simple as just a fence. And then if it's not going to have a floor as part of the structure, then it's also going to need to either be buried 2 feet down, which if you do that with the structure that they identified is going to take 2 feet away. So it's going to be even shorter and smaller. So the dog won't even really be able to move around in it. Unless it has some sort of a floor so that you don't have to physically bury the fencing 2 feet down, which also poses a problem for the door. So you won't be able to even open the door if you're burying the thing 2 feet down. So you can buy these kennels prefab with the fencing and all of that through companies like Tractor Supply. They have others online that are just outrageously expensive, none of which, by the way, have 2 entrances. So this isn't something that's so simple for them to just throw up a chain link fence around their yard.
But this isn't a rhetorical question. I really don't remember. Did we actually specify a structure or did we specify a set of requirements? My recollection was it's got to be a 6-foot fence. The top of the fence has to tilt inward.
Oh my God.
That was for the other.
Okay.
Other
It wasn't the same standard for both of them?
No.
Okay.
This is an enclosed structure.
Okay.
And quite frankly, it's not our problem that they're trying to buy something off the shelf. And if you need to bury it, you need to bury it. So they need to figure something out. I just did a quick look on the internet, and I came across something with a double door. So
where did you find that?
I found one at Wayfair. I'm also looking at some other ones at Tractor Supply.
Does it meet all of the remaining specifications? Because I'd be happy to take a look at it if you want to provide the link.
Don't know if it does, but all I'm saying is you said you couldn't find anything with a double door. I was very easily to find one, and I'm sure there are others out there. I'm concerned that, you're indicating that, our order of conditions strictly meets the statute. Well, what you're telling us you're going to do doesn't even meet the statute. Is that
Sure it
correct?
does.
No, you're going to do a floor. You're not going to bury the
You
thing
can
2 feet
do a
down.
floor, to be clear, according to the statute. So as long as the structure has a floor that is affixed to the walls of the structure, you don't need to bury it. It's right in the statute.
That is correct in terms of either has a floor or is secure, embedded within the ground, not less than 2 feet.
A humane floor, typically would be something you could wash, so it would be concrete or, something like that. But plywood, it just seems like you're trying to do the cheapest thing that maybe you're never really going to use. And we want to see that you're going to build something that you are going to use when you put the dog outside.
Mm-hmm. That's what it's for. So that's where the dog would be if the dog were outside, unleashed. Because that's what the structure is for. The structure isn't for them to be able to take the dog outside so that it can pee or poop, right? The structure is if they're going to let the dog outside and the dog is going to stay outside with them not outside, the dog needs to be in the structure.
Well, then you get into the issue of the plywood degrading in the rain. It has contact with the soil. So it's not a permanent floor the way a concrete one would be, or if you buried the fence. So,
well, I suppose if the board wanted a different floor, despite the fact that I believe the Danahers did speak with Phyllis, the ACO, about the plywood being the floor, I'm sure they could obtain some sort of paver or concrete, as you're suggesting, for the base or the floor of the structure. They would just need to use different fastening methods.
Not to complicate matters for the board, but again, the same issue we run into with the gate is the same issue we run into with the floor, is that there is no definition of what a floor is, other than if it is not a floor that is secured to the sides of the pen, it shall be embedded in the ground. Certainly think it's within the board's discretion to say no plywood if that becomes unhygienic or would deteriorate. But there's nothing specific on those points and may cause grounds for an appeal later on.
Phyllis, would you like to chime in on what the Danahers are looking to provide, including the plywood floor?
Out there on one trip to have a walk around the yard with her husband Chris. His shed has plastic snapped together interlocking pieces that makes the whole floor in the shed, and he said would something like that work. I see something as being plastic, something that can be washed. If they're interlocking and solid and can be affixed to the side, I accept that. As far as having the dog on the ground and this burying 2 feet, it's I've done this in another town. It's not the kennel that has to go 2 feet. Whatever's in the ground coming up 2 feet has to be attached to the cage. You can bury, you guys say what you want, but we have done it we made somebody, we discussed it and agreed that we would have cinder block buried 2 feet in the ground and brought up. Another place did sections of chain link that were 2 feet in the ground attached to the bottom of the kennel at ground level. That way there was 2 feet under the ground, but like what was spoken, you can't put the kennel itself 2 feet in the ground, or you'd have to dig out a section for the door, and then the kennel's only 4 feet high. So different things could be done for the 2 feet buried. or some kind of a floor that is washable. I understand the dog's not supposed to go out there to go to the bathroom, but it's going to happen. And I don't know how you're going to get it out of the plywood, and the plywood's not going to last forever. I
Well,
think
it's
I suggested to Monica about checking in with the Tractor Supply Company to see what they do use if they're not using a cement pad. It can be poured pretty easily, done by hand by a homeowner, framed out with 2x4s and some bags of cement powder and water and mix it. You're not doing a huge area. It's probably 4x6 or 6x8, whatever pen they chose.
I think it's 4x6, but the
Okay.
plastic interlocking floor is, did you look at the floor?
I have
Um,
not seen the floor.
that was in the shed,
I did not.
but is that, you indicated that that's something that you would be, as long as it can be affixed to the base of the bottom sides of the kennel, that you would be okay with something like that because it can be washed?
Something like that. If Chris is willing to show me what he's got in the shed, I'll take a look at it and see if it's something that's going to hold together when the dog's scratching at it or just, using it. It's what Chris described sounded like it was something solid and cleanable.
Correct.
What are the dimensions of this building that they want to buy?
I believe it's 4 feet by 6 feet.
So the dog's not going to be running around in there. The dog's
No.
going to maybe stretch out. That's about it.
Correct.
All right. My impression was not that we were restraining the dog to that extent when it goes outside, but I guess that's just because I'm a novice at this particular issue.
The statute is silent on how large the pen needs to be. And there was no specific size set in the order.
I understand. So what we're talking about here basically is a glorified doghouse, and whether or not it needs 2 doors. And where does the one door go to?
To the yard.
Right. So it's outdoors, and it's a locking kind of gate door like you would see on a fence, a chain link fence. You open it, the dog goes in, you close it, you lock it.
And if the dog slips through that, he then theoretically could just roam the neighborhood because the backyard's not contained, correct?
Well, I don't think that they have the dog. The dog wouldn't be outside in the kennel alone.
I thought you said it would be outside alone.
No, that's the only time the dog would need to be in the kennel. If they're taking the dog outside to pee or poop, the dog is on a leash and muzzled.
Right.
If they're just bringing the dog outside to leave him out there and then go back inside, which isn't going to happen, that's the structure that the dog needs to remain inside of if he's just outside, not using the facilities, if you will.
Why wouldn't he just be left outside by himself?
They don't leave him outside by himself. They never have. He's crated inside the house during the day when they're at work. This isn't a dog that gets left outside, to be clear.
Well, I think there should be a buried fence or a concrete slab. And I mean, at a minimum.
Well, the other solution is to take chain link fence and make that the floor.
Which I guess you could do that, but that may hurt the dog's feet if it's chain link.
No worse than wet plywood will.
Well, I'm not sure that you can close off the floor. And also, as a side note, I don't think that per the statute, it can be dictated whether it must be buried or must have a floor. It's an either or scenario in the statute. So either it's buried or there's a floor that is affixed to the sides. And I'm sure my client would not have a problem having Ms. Tower out to the house to view the interlocking floor shed that Mr. Danaher has in his shed to determine if that's strong enough in her opinion as the professional relating to animals here, if she deems that that's appropriate, as long as it's affixed and it can be washed, then I think that that should suffice.
That sounds very temporary to me.
Well,
Flooring.
I would
How
like to
could it
see
be
this on the
temporary
agenda
if
for
it's
the next.
affixed to the bottom of the structure? It needs to adhere to it. It needs to be affixed in some way. It can't just be interlock the floor and plunk the crate on top. You can't, it doesn't work that way.
The nature of plastic as a material and dogs chewing or clawing it, it's not as safe as burying a metal fence 2 feet down or a concrete slab.
I feel I need to do more homework on this. I would appreciate if Phyllis could go look at those interlocking floor and that we put this back on the agenda for our next meeting in 2 weeks. I can't see how we can come to a resolution tonight unless someone else has some new ideas.
No, I don't think we can. But let's be clear here. It's the reason that we're all here is not because of us. It's because of the behavior of the dog. So that's where the focus needs to be. And if the Danahers choose to get something small, that's entirely up to them. But you know, there are outdoor kennels of a whole variety of sizes.
Sure. And if they were to purchase the kennel that's pursuant to the order as it's written right now, I can have them do that prior to the next meeting.
It just seems like they're proposing to do the cheapest thing possible. They're probably not going to use it that much. They're just trying to get off. So, you know, I'm not very impressed with their proposal.
It's unfortunate that the board feels that way. That could not be further from the truth.
Their dog killed a neighbor's dog, and
While I appreciate and understand that, Mr. Keep, my clients are simply trying to comply with the order as it's written by the board. They have been communicative with the ACO. This isn't a dog that has ever behaved like that in the past. It was just as much of a shock to my clients as I'm sure it was to this board. This dog never had exhibited that kind of behavior. This isn't a dog that was untrained either. My clients had gone through years of training with this dog, and I have the list of all of the training that this dog had gone through from the time that they received the dog when he was a puppy. So they started him out. They got the dog at 9 weeks old. They've been responsible dog owners, and the minute that they got that dog, as soon as they were able, when he was 6 months old, they signed him up for professional dog training. He first did what they call puppy kindergarten, if you will, in Sudbury at Especially Pets. He completed 2 additional courses through PetSmart in Leominster. And then in the fall of 2013, the dog attended a 3-week overnight training at Auntie Dog in Chelmsford prior to the birth of the Danaher's first son. Also, during that same period of time, Brody had attended a doggy daycare every week at a minimum of a few times a month, more so when he was younger. And then as a result of the pandemic, Ms. Danaher was working from home, so the dog was home with her primarily. So the need for doggy daycare every week wasn't as necessary. This isn't a dog that A, is not trained and B, has not been raised around other dogs its entire life. So this behavior that this dog exhibited on that day could not have been more out of character for this animal. So this, you know, for the board to suggest that this was something negligent on the part of my client because of prior behaviors of the dog that were aggressive toward other animals is simply disingenuous. My
No,
clients are
excuse
more than
me,
prepared.
excuse me. That dog attacked the dog that he killed prior to this.
He didn't attack the dog.
Yes.
No, he wandered into the neighbor's yard. It's right in the minutes indicating that the dog had wandered into the neighbor's yard. It's
You know,
in the.
and I'm sorry to say all this training and all of this stuff, and the dog then decides to kill another animal. just because of it?
Well, the dog is 9 now, with all due respect. I mean, the training that he received and all of the exposure that he's had to dogs has been the entire life of the dog. So my clients, as I said, are more than willing to comply with the decision as it's written. Get the structure established in the yard. That's all they want to do.
I am in a position right now of saying that I don't understand the full ramifications of what the written order was. I need to go back and understand that better. And I'm asking that that Phyllis go out and look at this flooring, that the animal control officer go out and look at this flooring, and that we meet again on, I think it's the 23rd. Yes.
Yes, the
At what-
23rd.
I think
At
there
what
are,
time?
I think there are more options available, but I couldn't sit here and tell you what they are.
At what time on the 23rd?
The time is to be determined. The meeting never starts before 7, but we can't guarantee you it'll be the first item on the agenda.
That's fine.
And I'd just like to remind the board that when we come back on the 23rd, if for whatever reason you can't come to cloure with the Danahers or their attorney, you still have the option of reissuing the order more stringently.
Mr. Lowe, if perhaps my memory is faulty, but didn't we have some communication from the Danahers that it indicated that a double door structure was cost prohibitive? Wasn't
I
that?
don't know that it was communication from the Danahers. I received that comment from Attorney Murphy, who I think received that comment from the Danahers attorney.
That's
All right,
correct.
well, then I think at the next meeting, then, if we've been presented with this one option, and what I've heard is that there is no other option, then it seems to be contrary to the comment being made that a double door kennel is cost prohibitive. So I'd like to understand what cost prohibitive is, if that was communicated to us by the Danaher's attorney.
Well, as I indicated, the kennel that they were able to locate is $279 from Tractor Supply. The flooring, the plywood, or the interlocking floor, I mean, the cost of the interlocking floor at this point, I don't know, because that was just brought up during this meeting. But at any rate, the plywood and the brackets would be around $200. So in total, it was about $500. I don't know if the interlocking floor is going to cause that to go up. I'm not sure. And as I've indicated to the board, if someone is able to point my clients in the direction of a double-doored structure that complies with the other specifications outlined in the statute, also in your written decision, they're more than happy to take a look at it to ensure that it's something that meets the other specifications. It's just not something that they've been able to find. I myself have been on Tractor Supply, and I can't find one either.
Oh, that's fine, but Mr. Lowe, in preparation for the next meeting, I'd like you to research, because I distinctly remember that there was some comment made that a double door kennel would be cost prohibitive. And so if that's the case, then that's contrary to what I'm hearing this evening. So
Well, I think the board would certainly want to see what cost prohibitive means. And again, with all due respect, to reemphasize Selectman Keep's point, there are criteria that need to be met. And the expense is not something that, I assume that no one looks to do it the cheapest way possible, but that's, when you talk about a wood floor, that's the way it comes across. And I would like to remind the board that it is not the board's responsibility or role, for that matter, to search the internet to provide recommendations to the dog owner. It's the dog owner's responsibility to determine how they're going to comply with the order. So I would advise the board to not get into recommending means and methods or sources for such a pen.
No, I think
Well,
that,
I might also indicate, with all due respect, if my clients were to buy the structure that they've been able to identify and affix the floor, that can be cleaned, that it would be compliant with the board's decision. As
I'm
it's
not going to
written.
make that decision tonight.
I don't think you have to. It's already been made, is what I'm suggesting. So the way that the board's decision is written at present, that issued pursuant to your meeting, the structure that my clients have identified as of today complies with that order, and they could certainly purchase it, and then we could be done. Because it's compliant with what's
Chairman,
been written.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, because this is dragging on. If that's the approach that the Danaher's attorney would prefer to take, then I would advise the board or ask the board to consider reissuing the order. I mean, the intent tonight was to determine whether or not you felt you needed to reissue the order, or the board can certainly, the board can't stop the Danahers from moving forward with purchasing something. The board has made it clear that the board may consider reissuing their order. So if that's what the Danahers prefer to do on their attorney's advice, then the board still has the option of reissuing the order at the next meeting.
And I
Because they've been advised
suppose-
that may be an outcome.
If my clients wanted to do that at this point, based upon their communication with Ms. Tower, they would have done so already. That's why they have not purchased the structure, because of the confusion surrounding what the structure needs to be or what the board's expectations are.
Then I
And
would
the board,
say.
and the
I-
board
I
has
believe-
said that they would continue it to the next meeting, so
That's
I don't
fine.
see, I don't see why there's a threat of the Danahers purchasing it and installing it before the next meeting when the board
Of
has said
course,
they're
I'm
willing to
just
consider
advising that
options.
that could be an option for them, but if they wanted to do so, they would have done that already. They just want a structure that complies with the board's requirements before they purchase it.
I would
And
ask
that's why they've
the
been
town,
communicative with Ms. Tower.
I would ask the town administrator to send us a copy of the written order that was actually sent out.
And how that compares to the minutes during the meeting, and we can also watch the video of the
Yeah.
meeting.
I need to see the written order.
And I think we should continue this to the next meeting. And certainly one item for possible discussion at the next meeting is to reissue the order of conditions.
Yes.
And so are we going to have another hearing then at that time?
I don't think
Because
we
I-
need to decide that tonight.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Lowe,
Yeah.
if we wish to reissue the order of conditions, do we need another hearing or not?
I don't believe we do, but that's a question for our attorney.
Yep, let's check into that. I don't believe we need one either, but let's check
Jessica?
with our attorney.
I will confer on that issue and get back to you tomorrow, Dawn.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I guess for purposes of this meeting, let us consider this particular agenda item closed to be continued at the next meeting. Update, next is the update from the Animal Control Officer Phyllis Tower on the order for the dangerous dog at 42 Fox Run Road.
Yes. 1 second, wrong page. I did reach out to David Newman on the 30th of August, asking that I come out and ask him for a day and see the fence that he's got and talk about the order and see where he's putting what. So I kind of had an idea what's going on. He answered back a very quick time later, just minutes. And he said that an appeal had been filed and that I should speak with the town council. So some discussions were made and evidently he has filed for an appeal at Clinton District Court. And I don't know if they went forward with that or where it stands. Not been back to his house. I asked him if even though he's had to give an meeting tonight, and could we schedule a time to come out to see the fencing that he's got, and I had no reply.
Mr. Lowe, I believe the individuals in question at 42 Fox Run Road have filed an appeal.
I'm sorry.
We have been informed of their intent. I don't know if one has actually been filed yet.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I can confirm that an appeal was filed on August 27th. It is within the appeal period. He has obtained, the Newmans have obtained new counsel for the appeal, and I've been in discussions with Attorney Cohen. He is in the process of reviewing the minutes and the decision, and we intend to speak next week about what the plan is. I've made clear the position that the board's order is not stayed by the appeal. Practically speaking, however, I expect that the Newmans will not take any action until the appeal is either discontinued if they choose to go that route, or prosecuted. Currently, there is a magistrate hearing scheduled for, I believe it's the 30th, September 30th.
Okay, so I guess this one is to be continued. Okay, well, I guess that's about all that we're going to be hearing on that one. So let's
All
move
right,
up.
thank you, Phyllis.
Thanks,
Yep,
Phyllis.
thank you.
You have a
Yep,
nice
you're
night.
welcome. Yeah, you too. Bye now.
Bye-bye. Next up is the town administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, our COVID-19 update. As of last Thursday, I don't have the numbers yet for this week. As of last Thursday night, the total percentage of eligible people in Bolton, so age 12 and up, who have been vaccinated is 90.4%, which equates to 399 individuals not being vaccinated. So we're under 400 people now not being vaccinated. The total, if you look at it from the total population perspective, eligible and ineligible, so all people living in Bolton, we're at 77.8%. So again, a very high percentage, but even more impressive when you get into the eligible population. Last week at this time, we had 15 new cases in town. This week is the only number I have that's new as of tonight. We have 9 new eligible cases. So there's been a significant percentage drop in eligible case in new cases. So that is again encouraging when you see the tick up, the uptick, I should say, that's been taking place. Town of Bolton is in good shape relative to a lot of other places. Certainly not ideal. Ideal is we're not dealing with this anymore, but that's not going to be the case for quite some time. So those are encouraging numbers. As far as the grant update goes, I thought the best thing to do, and I've already sent you some information on this, but I thought the best thing to do would be to read the press release that went out today. Rebecca Longwall, our conservation agent, represented the town at a ceremony last Tuesday in East Hampton. And Rebecca was on vacation and took a day out of her vacation to go out to East Hampton to represent us, where the governor, the lieutenant governor, and Secretary Theorates, I'm very close to that if I'm not exactly right, did awards for various towns. So I'm going to read the press release. The town of Bolton has been awarded $302,691 in MVP action grant funds from the Baker-Polito administration to build climate resilience. Bolton is thrilled to announce it has received $302,691 municipal climate resilience grant to complete the Nashua River Community's Resilient Lands Management Project in partnership with Clinton, Massachusetts. Awarded by the Baker-Polito administration's Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program, which is administered by the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, these competitive grants support cities and towns in identifying climate hazards, developing strategies to improve resilience, and implementing priority actions to adapt to climate change. Bolton, in partnership with Clinton, is one of 66 communities and regional partnerships to have received action grant funding in the latest round of applications. The two partnering communities, Clinton and Bolton, much like other towns, have become witness to not only the stressors from climate change, but the real-time need for resilient strategies, said Rebecca Longval, Town of Bolton Conservation Agent. This MVP grant allows our community to take the necessary steps to strengthen ecosystem services in order to support a more resilient community. And just going on, building on Bolton's climate resilience planning process completed in 2018 and more recently 2020, these funds will allow Bolton and Clinton to define land management practices that strengthen and enhance ecosystem services of land within the participating municipalities and the region. Bolton identified these projects as urgent and necessary in its efforts to address ongoing climate change impacts. So we are indeed partnering with Clinton. I would like to point out that Rebecca did lead this effort and did write the grant submission. So once again, she has done a wonderful job for the town. At our next meeting, I'm hoping to come back with further grant news, but I'm unable to share anything tonight. So, but $302,000 from an MVP grant. So we're off to a good start in FY22.
Climate resilience is really important. I have family in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. I'm sure you've seen images of the streams and rivers. They received, I believe, 8 inches of water in 15 hours. And if that happened here, our streams, wetlands, the Still River would have been very high. So this is very important work for us. So thank you, Don, and thank you, Rebecca. This is great news.
Yep, excellent work, Rebecca.
Thank you. And just finally, just to announce to everyone that our September coffee with the town administrator will be at 8:30 a.m. Jenny's sending me early, but it's really 8:30 a.m. at the Bolton Bean on September 17th. I get there around 8 or so I get my coffee and my sandwich, and I've taken care of that before people come, but it'll be from 8:30 to 9:30. And as always, I look forward to seeing people there. We have people that attend on a regular basis, and we have people that I meet for the first time at these. So it's really a very, for me, it's a very fun thing to do.
So you have your groupies that come every time, right?
We have very dedicated people who attend. And it's always nice to see them. So unless the board has any questions, that's all I have for this evening.
No, one question on your COVID-19. Did you say last week there were 15 new cases and this week are 9?
Yes.
Okay. I can remember months ago when the vaccination rates were much less and perhaps people were taking a bit more precaution. We had, in some cases, no new cases over a number of weeks. So,
I think we went about 8 weeks with no new cases, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But also at the state level, at that low point, our positivity rate as a state was down to 0.31%. And the most recent positivity rate that I saw today was, I believe, 2.42. So the positivity rate statewide has increased 8-fold since its low point.
Yep. Yeah, but 15 and 9 is still not good. Thank you. All right, next up on our agenda is 58 Main Street, an update from Good Leaf Holdings. Mr.
Great,
James.
thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much for making the time for us today. We have a presentation that is probably longer than there is time for you, and some of it got, well, a fair amount of it got to you a little bit late. So, so what I propose that we do is just hit the highlights of the presentation, particularly targeted towards the 2 marching orders you gave us last meeting, which is to send you the bios and open up a discussion and questions on the bios, and then to get more to the substance of what will go on the site, particularly as it relates to what are typically the hot button issues for residents. And so that's what we've tried to do in the presentation, hence its length. But I don't know what is available to you visually, what the selectmen have had a chance to see. I can bring up the whole presentation and share my screen if that's preferable, or if you've seen something, we can walk through that, and then I can have the subject matter expert on odor, which is a large part of what was missing from the presentation, give you an overview of that, and we can catch up again on the entire presentation, perhaps on the 23rd. So I look for direction from how you would like me to use your valuable time.
Why don't you just present the highlights for now?
Okay. Would you like me to bring it up on my screen?
Please.
Okay. All right. Am I screen enabled to
Yes,
share?
I've changed the allowances so that you should be able to share.
Okay, great. Hold on one sec. Can everybody see my screen with a mountain on it right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so here is the presentation. I'm gonna see if I can minimize the picture so that you have the full screen, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'm gonna run through my portions of this as quickly as possible. But please, if you have any questions, please feel free to stop me at any moment. And then I'll introduce the subject matter experts as it's their turn. So just very briefly, we did send the biographies. And once I've done through this slide, we can open up to any questions that you might have had on those biographies. We have met with Don and his staff and the chiefs of fire and police. We've also met with Bill Brookings from the National Regional Board of Health. Nashua Regional Board of Health. And we've prepared and published a public notice in the Bolton Independent as of yesterday for a meeting on the 27th from 6 to 8 p.m. I've also worked on a draft of a proposed HCA using the Temescal IPH HCA previously unanimously approved by the Bolton Board of Selectmen, because I thought that would be a good starting point, since you seem to like that one. So I have not shared that yet with Don. It's with the rest of the team for their comments, and then I'll forward that to Don probably tomorrow. So that's slide one. Before we move on, does anybody have any questions, concerns about anybody's biographies? Does anybody want any of us to elaborate on our backgrounds at all?
Nope.
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
I read the resumes. I was impressed with the broad experience and also with your community service. So thank you for sending those.
Thank you very much for the chance to allow us to show them to you. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. The planned activities, and of course, these are just hope for dates. We may not actually meet the schedule. You guys might not be comfortable with schedule, but this would be our goal as a company. We have a September 14th, 6 p.m. meeting, presentation to the Board of Health and Bill Brookings. We'd like to re-engage with you guys again on the 23rd to elaborate on the things we don't have time to talk about today. And then on the 27th, we will have the public meeting at the Florence Sawyer Auditorium. And then, subject to that being going well enough for you guys to be comfortable moving forward, I would work with whoever you appoint, perhaps Don, to work on the HCA for submission to you for your approval in mid-October. Is that pretty clear? Any questions?
Nope.
Okay.
It's optimistic, but let's go.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. So the rest of this section is called Good Leaf Corporate Citizenship and Good Neighbor Policies and Plans. And it's specifically around the issues that we felt residents and you might want to most hear about. So to start us off, we have Joel Frisch from Northeast Geosciences, and he's going to present a couple of his slides that he produced regarding the water resources. Joel, are you all set to go?
I am.
Okay, I'm going to bring up the slide on my screen, Joel. Okay, I think we have it.
Okay, thanks, Ben. As Ben said, my name is Joel Frisch. I'm with Northeast Geoscience Incorporated in Clinton, and we will be assisting this project with their water supply needs. So the water use at the project consists of basically two types. There's domestic water uses and irrigation water uses. So the domestic water uses are similar to the previous facility. They are your typical domestic uses: drinking water, restrooms, kitchens, etc. And that domestic water will be provided by a public water supply well, which is existing on the property. There's an existing well that is permitted through Mass DEP and is currently inactive, but can be activated. We've notified DEP of the intent to activate that source. They have given us direction as to what will be required to activate that source. And once the facility is ready to go, we will initiate that permitting process. That source is, again, regulated and permitted by DEP. It is operated by a licensed water supply operator that reports to Mass DEP, and Mass DEP has strict water quality and water volume limits that they place on that source. The second type of use at the facility is irrigation water. We've estimated about a 6,000 gallon a day volume of water for irrigation. That's a separate system from the domestic system. The system will include our water reuse and recovery system. So that 6,000 gallons a day is really a maximum. And it's when the water recovery and reuse system is used, it'll actually reduce the total daily demand that's required. That water would be provided by a proposed irrigation well, which would be a new well installed at the facility, which would be permitted through the Bolton and the Neshoba Boards of Health. Those wells, both of those wells are, as you can see, there's a picture of on the plan here of a typical 6-inch diameter bedrock well that anyone in Bolton is familiar with. It's a standard house well. It's not anything different than you would find at a typical house in the neighborhood. That other photograph on the first slide there is to put in perspective the two combined flows for this facility, the domestic water and the irrigation water. If you were to combine those, would be 6,960 gallons a day. That hose that's discharging into the blue bucket on that slide is roughly the average of those flows in gallons per minute. That's the magnitude of the combined flows for the entire facility are coming out of that hose. So if we were to pump that volume round the clock, that's the amount of water we would need for both domestic water and irrigation water. So it's a pretty modest, 6,000 gallons or almost 7,000 gallons total sounds like a big number, but really when you break it down into gallons per minute, it's actually a very modest withdrawal volume.
But what you're saying, let me make sure I understand that, is that
Yep.
you're going to fill that bucket. It's a 5-gallon bucket. You're going to fill that every minute for 24 hours a day.
Correct.
Okay.
If we were to use the full volume of water. So the domestic water flows are Title V flows, which are invariably overestimates, but those are limited. Those withdrawals from the public water supply are limited to 960 gallons a day. They can't exceed that volume. The irrigation flows, again, those are maximum for the current facility. Those are maximum estimates that would be actually reduced by the reuse and recovery system. And again, when you break it all down, if you were to pump it continuously around the clock, that flow, that's the amount of water you would be looking at, the amount coming out of that hose.
Joel, I'm just going to interject for a second.
Yep.
Eric Gath is going to speak later about how much, about the recycling of the water and how much we can recapture. So you'll learn, or at least I'll learn more when Eric speaks, and hopefully you guys will learn more as well.
And I don't mind commenting now on that question. I'm Eric Gaff from BLW Engineers. Typically what we can do is we reclaim a large portion of that water. So that 6,000 gallons per day of usage can actually be reduced by between 70 and 90%. So I would estimate that out of that 6,000 gallons per day, you're only taking out of the well 30% of that, which would be 1,800 gallons per day. So about a third of that number.
Thanks, Eric. Any other, well, Joel, Joel, do you want to move to the next slide and then take other questions?
Yeah, so the slide 1 is essentially laying out for everyone the volumes of water we're talking about, how they'll be provided, from what source, who's permitting those sources, and it really provides a maximum of the different types of sources. Now, if we go to slide 2 is trying to put in perspective the relationship of the wells to the residences, which are up behind that facility. And so I don't know if you can point to those things for me, Ben, but on the plan, so up in that area where Ben's pointing now, there is the well symbol that has a number associated with it. And I don't know if I can read that number, but just to put in perspective, where he has his cursor is the existing public water supply well. So it's a 6-inch diameter bedrock well, a few hundred feet deep, produces about 12 gallons a minute. And we would be taking no more than 1,000 gallons a day, which is what the existing, the previous facility pulled out of that well on a daily basis for decades. So that well provides plenty of water. Now there's 2 circles around that well. The inner circle, if you could show that, Ben, is the zone 1 wellhead protection area. That is an area that for a new source. That's the inner circle there, Ben, if you could.
Yeah, I see.
Yep, right there. Yeah. So that's
yep.
100-foot diameter, 100-foot radius around the well. That's an exclusive wellhead protection zone that is typically for a new public water supply. If we were to permit a brand new public water supply, nothing can be in that wellhead area that isn't related to the water supply. So you can see that there's parking lots and buildings within this wellhead protection area. This is zone 1. So it's non-conforming zone 1 wellhead protection area. And so because it's non-conforming, DEP doesn't allow you to take any additional water out of that well. So it's limited to 960 gallons per day. They can't take any additional water. there is a second circle that goes around that well, which has a terrible name, but it's called the Interim Wellhead Protection Area. And that area it has very few applications, but it's similar to, if anyone's ever heard of a Zone 2 for a municipal water supply, it's sort of the equivalent to that. It's an area that is sort of defines a sensitive area around the well where you may expect some recharge to the well. And so typically you wouldn't want septic systems or things like that inside. You can have abutting septic systems in your interim wellhead protection area, but in general, if you're permitting a new source, you generally don't want your own septic system to be within the interim wellhead protection area. In this case, the existing septic systems are shown on there approximately where they are, those rectangles, those two rectangles there. But again, it's a non-conforming, it's an old source that was permitted as a public water supply after the fact. And so if this were a new public water supply that we were permitting through Mass DEP, the volume of water we would be using is less than 100,000 gallons a day. And the only time someone who has a public water supply is required to assess the impacts of the public water supply on private wells is when you're pumping over 100,000 gallons a day. And we're proposing to pump less than 1,000 gallons a day. So again, if we were permitting this as a new source, DEP wouldn't even consider private well impacts for the existing public water supply well. As we mentioned, we also need an irrigation well on this facility. We just simply for convenience sake located a proposed irrigation well near the rear of the building in the back of the facility there. Again, this is just theoretical. It's a potential location where we can install a well. So we assumed that this was the location that we would put the irrigation well, and we applied the same distances that would apply to a public water supply of that scale. So a public water supply pumping 6,000 gallons per day. And so those circles, the Zone 1 and the interim wellhead protection area increase as the volume of water you pump out of the well increases. So they're a little tricky to see, but there's a lighter dashed, sort of a greenish color dash line just outside there. Yep, that's that circle right there. That would be the equivalent Zone 1 for a public water supply well if this irrigation well were treated as a public water supply well. And then there's the larger circle outside that, which again would be this interim wellhead protection area. It's a dashed darker line. And again, if you follow that dashed darker line, the outer edge up toward where the private residences are behind the facility right up there, the interim wellhead protection area for this theoretical public water supply well doesn't even reach those residences. It just barely comes up to the edge of the property. That's a 533-foot interim wellhead protection area theoretically for this irrigation well. So you're approaching the distance of 2 football fields from the nearest private well. In fact, you're probably pretty close to 2 football fields. And so again, if we were permitting this irrigation well through DEP as a public water supply, theoretically, they wouldn't require any testing of private wells, any impacts on private wells. The withdrawal is too small. That being said, for the public water supply well, we need to test the water quality. We need to do a very comprehensive testing of the public water supply well. And in order to do that, we need to flush that well quite a bit. It hasn't really been used in the last few years. So we need to flush that thing probably for 24 hours. When we permit this proposed irrigation well, that'll be permitted through the Board of Health and the SHOBA Boards of Health. And any testing that they recommend that we do will certainly include that in our scope of work to do that. So if Nashua and the Bolton Boards of Health are looking for potential, looking for us to address or assess potential impacts to private wells in the area, we can certainly do that. But my purpose of mentioning all this is that if we were doing this as a public water supply, it would not be required because the withdrawals are so small. I know that number sounds like a big number, 6,000, 7,000 gallons a day. If we were to go up to the maximum amount, it's still a very modest withdrawal. And again, what we would probably end up doing, we've done this in the past in other towns, working with Nashua to assess private well impacts. What we normally would do is pump both of the wells. So the irrigation well and the public water supply well would be pumped together at the same time, most likely for 24 hours. We would run a 24-hour pumping test where both wells would pump at some rate above what we would expect to pump the wells at. So typically DEP requires 133% of the amount that you hope to withdraw. So we would pump both wells at the same time at 133% of what we want to pump out of them for 24 hours. And during that pumping period, we could assess what their impacts would be on the private wells, because what we're trying to produce during that test are conditions that we should never see when the system is operating, because you would be pumping round the clock at 133% of the amount that you're hoping to pump. So you're trying to create conditions that you should never see during the operation of the facility. So if there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them.
The irrigation well is a second well?
Correct.
Have to be drilled?
That would be a new well.
And both the public water supply well and the irrigation well are included in the totals that you talked about earlier?
Exactly.
Other questions, gentlemen, on what Joel had to say?
None right now.
Okay, we can revisit any of this, obviously, at your desire. So, you can read through all this if you want after the meeting, and we can get back on the phone on the 23rd or some other time if you want and discuss anything that you want. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce Jacob Lemieux, who is our septic expert, and he's going to talk about his slide. He's got one slide, and I'm going to bring it up now so that we can all see it. Jacob, you ready?
Yes, thank you, Ben. Can you hear me?
Just to be clear, you're about 10 minutes or so into your allotted 20 minutes, so you need to make sure you tighten it up a bit. So
okay,
I'll be quick here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
For the record, my name is Jacob Lemieux with Hancock Associates out of Marlboro. So I'll try to keep this as quick as possible. There are two septic systems existing on the site right now. Both of them have been investigated and repaired 2017 and passed a Title V inspection in 2019. The lower system has been designed for 75. It was designed per Title V regulations for 75 employees, where obviously we're going down to 55. So this represents a significant reduction in septic flows. So the idea here is to obviously order another Title V inspection, inspect and go over the existing septic systems with the Board of Health to determine whether or not any repairs need to be made or any upgrades, and keep those in place if possible. For the process water, we'll be looking into all potential disposal options. Most likely there'll be a holding tank, which would be 500% daily flow capacity, which of that wastewater flow, which would be about a 9,000 gallon tank. And we would also, Hancock Associates would also be in charge of investigating any wetlands on site along the front of the site. There's some wetlands, so we'll go investigate that and communicate with the Conservation Commission on any potential issues or grading that needs to be done in those areas. So I'll open it up to questions just to be quick, and we can follow up on it in the future.
Yeah, your holding tank, you said that was 9,000 gallons. but 5 times 6,000 gallons is 30,000 gallons. So how do you get to 9,000 gallons daily flow?
So if we use the water conservation numbers of the 70 to 90%, we'll be permitting the well for the 6,000 gallon per day flow. However, we won't be producing 6,000 gallons per day of waste. We'll be recycling out the large portion of that. So, we'll be working with the team to determine exactly how much of that wastewater can be recycled, and then the holding tank would be 500% of the actual waste flows out of the building.
And that would be 1,500 gallons per day then.
1,800 gallons
Okay.
per day using the preliminary numbers.
1,800. Yep. Thank you.
So the holding tank would be pumped out on a certain schedule and it would go to a facility that treats the water?
Yes, it would be. We'd set up a pumping schedule, and then we would pump the water out intermittently to a treatment facility or a proper disposal.
Okay.
Other questions for Jacob?
Actually, I have one. It kind of appears that the presentation that you sent us and that Mr. Lowe sent to us at 6:25 this evening is not exactly the same as what I'm seeing you present, because our presentation doesn't have, it looks like slide 13 is holding tank, slide 14 has some diagrams, slide 15 has some holding tank stuff. I certainly don't have that. So what did you send us?
So my apologies, but I had some trouble incorporating Eric's slides into my PowerPoint. So we're happy to come back and review slides 13 through and
Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's not in what you sent us.
Just send us the new version.
Yeah, and secondly, Mr. Lowe sent this to us at 6:25, and we started an executive session at 6:30, so we certainly wouldn't have any time to look at this. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to suggest that for the next meeting, getting something 35 minutes before a selectmen's meeting is not acceptable in my view. For something of this magnitude that's being proposed for the town and that parcel, if you're going to present something, we need to see it ahead of schedule so that we're informed and are able to ask intelligent questions. So speaking for myself, I'm not happy that one, we get something minutes before the meeting, and two, what we get is not what is represented on the screen here, which has more information. So I mean, we're almost at the end of the 20 minutes. Perhaps maybe it might make sense to let's stop this now, send us this new version so we can digest it, and let's have I believe you're scheduled to meet with us on the 23rd. Why don't we do that then? Because I'm not really comfortable in moving forward with this when there's so much information that we have not had an opportunity to even look at, to be able to intelligently ask any questions about.
I would like to get a copy of this whole presentation. I would like to add to what Stan said by saying we really need to see something like this by the end of the day Monday, because we have other commitments and we can't just drop everything to prepare for this. Sure. I would like this to go on a little longer so that people who are not going to get the presentation can start thinking about questions that they have. Other people who are viewing this meeting. So I think to inform other people, we should continue for a few more minutes.
That's fine. A few more minutes, and then let's reconvene when we have the full package.
Okay, I apologize for the tardiness of getting it to Don. It's really my fault. There was just, I was trying to be probably overly comprehensive for this meeting. I probably should have waited for part of it for the 23rd. So my apologies. Your points are well taken, and I apologize to all of you. And we will get this out Monday to all of you and see you again on the 23rd. And so, Eric, do you want to speak in like a couple minutes about odor control and water recycling?
Yes, sure. If you want to just go to the first page of the odor control where I just list the multifaceted approach, the overview portion, I'll just give a brief summary of how we've approached these facilities in the past. So I'm Eric, BLW Engineers. I've helped design and build approaching 40 of these facilities now, and we've over the time learned from some mistakes and come up with a pretty good solution to reduce odors in these facilities. And it takes a couple of things, not just one. The main issue is the building pressure. We have to make sure the building is properly pressurized so that no air is escaping out of the building. If you can't control that, there's no way to control the odors. There's cannabis in the building. Cannabis does produce odors, and if you can't control the air exiting the building, there's no way to control those odors. So that's number one. Number two is the secure filtration, which is an electrified filter, which we can dig into that more in 2 weeks. But essentially what that does is reduce the odors inside the building. These grow rooms, we have about 30 air changes per hour through these filters, and it drastically reduces the odor inside the building. Then the third approach is all of the air is leaving the building is through controlled exhaust. And in that exhaust duct, we have carbon filtration, which is very, very common. I'm sure you've heard it used in, hospitals and dumps and all different types of facilities. And we put carbon filtration on all the exhaust duct. In addition to that carbon filtration, we use another technology we call FogCo. That's a neutralization, and that's essentially injecting essential oils into that exhaust airstream, which neutralizes all of the odors that are in the exhaust. So that's just a brief summary on the approach we'll be taking at this facility in order to, mitigate the majority of the odors around the facility.
Okay, and I think Eric spoke briefly about the water recycling. So if we want to keep time short, maybe we should move to noise control, slide 30. And that will leave us with just a few more slides, which we can probably finish up pretty quickly. And then we'll come back and answer any questions you have on the 23rd. And again, I apologize for such a long presentation. Does that sound like okay to finish up these last 5 slides?
Certainly, keep it tight, please.
Okay, great. So noise control, it would be divided into a couple different phases. We would, and this is directly from our noise control consultant who just couldn't be with us today. But we take a baseline measure of the decibel level as it exists today with sensors. We compare that to the Mass DEP community policy requirements, and we set goals to meet those to meet those requirements. And then the noise consultant would work with Eric to select preliminary equipment, model how the noise consultant thinks that will affect the environment, and use the modeling to finalize equipment selection. And then And, the potential equipment we're looking at is an efficient internal HVAC equipment system with each room of the cultivation center having its own HVAC system, external cooling tower, and placement of that cooling tower on the north side away from the neighborhood. I'm just going to burn through these slides, and then if anybody wants me to come back, I will do so. Security and emergency planning. We would intend to go to the chiefs early on, both Mr. Nelson and Mr. Legendre, and to develop a CCC compliant diversion, prevention, and emergency SOPs plan. We'd require all employees to participate in the CCC diversion training programs on a regular basis, implement a comprehensive seed to sale tracking system and management reporting, collaborate with the chiefs to design and implement emergency notification and response protocols, and collaborate with the chiefs of police to design and implement full camera video and exterior lighting to meet appropriate light pollution requirements, and ensure sufficient internet access in the interior of the building to make sure we can stay in contact with the fire and police department. Slide 33, the community impact plan.
Yeah, Mr. James, before you move on, Mr. Law, do you have something that you need to bring up?
I just didn't want to lose the point that to address concern or at least something that struck me that one of the selectmen said. When we do receive the updated presentation from Ben on Monday morning, I just wanted to let all the attendees as well as the selectmen know that we will get it up on the website on Monday. So people that sat through the meeting tonight would have the opportunity to view it at that point, as well as the selectmen.
Thank you, Don. Sorry for the interruption, Mr. James.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. That was helpful, actually. So in terms of vendors to help us with the construction and maintain the building and continue its operations, we would give hiring priority, other things being equal, to local qualified vendors. The same is true of our hiring practices outside the senior management team, which is already on the phone and therefore hired. And we'd work with local authorities to make sure we comply with all local law and ordinances, with all necessary boards, commissions, officers, and officials. And we intend to work with the town officials to agree on a mutually acceptable community impact fee. And we'd also work with, I guess, probably Rebecca to protect, and through Jacob, to make sure all wetlands are protected. And we would ensure whatever site planning we do, that Andy's hiking trail near 72 Bolton Woods stays in good shape. And that's the only trail that we're aware of, but there may be others, and we're certainly, if there are others, we would certainly make sure that we don't impact those as well in terms of trails, public use trails. And then lastly is the projected timeline, and this is just an estimate, and I'm sure you guys are well aware that that's all this is, but and I'm not going to take you through every step, but it's a rather lengthy process, and this estimate shows us opening sort of mid 2023. So that is the presentation in summary, and we will entertain any questions that you guys may have at this moment, and then we will get the presentation sent out to you by Monday afternoon, and look forward to hopefully seeing you guys again on the 23rd. Any questions for tonight?
Well, I for one, I think need to digest the whole presentation a little bit more.
Yep.
And then I think I think I'll certainly have more questions at the meeting on the 23rd.
Great. Any other questions for tonight or comments? And
The only other comment I'd make is that, and this is directed somewhat toward the chairman, we need to build into what we're doing here, the chance for community feedback directly to the selectmen. We've had meetings before where we invite the public to comment on projects like this. We need to make sure we do that again.
Absolutely. No, I agree.
Yeah, I just wanted to say so far, we've seen, this is the third proposal we've seen for this site related to marijuana. And so far what I'm seeing is the most comprehensive and detailed in terms of information. And I am impressed by the number of independent engineers that you're working with related to different aspects of the project. So I do want to commend you for that.
well, I apologize for getting it to you late, but I do appreciate the positive feedback that you just gave us, and we'll look forward to going through this with you having the appropriate time and to look at it and form all your questions, and hopefully we can answer them all on the 23rd.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. And again, I do apologize for the tardiness of the presentation. I was just trying to pull together so much comprehensive data. I got a little overwhelmed at the end of the day. So
No
I
problem.
apologize.
No problem. No problem. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. All of you from Goodleaf. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. And
Thank
we
you.
will depart the meeting, and we appreciate everyone's time.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night now.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Next up is select board business. Any public service announcements this evening?
Yeah, I have a brief one, and it's related to the presentation that's going to be given on, I think it was September 27th is when Goodleaf is doing its presentation. The email that went out referenced a hearing. It is not a hearing. It is just a meeting. A hearing may suggest a legal process to some people, but the meeting on the 27th, and I encourage everyone to attend, is just a meeting between Goodleaf and the public.
Thank you, Mr. Sikansky. Anyone else?
No.
Okay, well, maybe not so much a public service announcement, but the information that Mr. Lowe, our town administrator, presented about the COVID-19 status. Yes, Bolton's doing very well, but there are 399 eligible residents in this town who have not been vaccinated. And unless you have a legitimate medical condition or allergy to the vaccines, there is no good reason why you're not vaccinated. There are lots of individuals still getting sick. The hospitals are filling up. Patients who have not been vaccinated, who have COVID, or patients who are taking things like ivermectin, who are taking hospital beds from people who are legitimately ill. I urge you to reconsider and really strongly consider getting vaccinated. I know a lot of people have said, it's my body, my choice, but your choices are affecting everyone else. So I urge you, please get vaccinated. There are things going on now where I think some tide is turning in terms of making it more requirement, but I really urge you, especially for the kids, for those children who are not eligible yet to get a vaccine. We're seeing tremendous explosions in that age group getting ill, and we need to stop that. So I urge you, get a vaccine. All right, next up is review and vote on the select board fee schedule. Always a very exciting moment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I always try to inject a little excitement to the meeting. So this is not fees in the sense of all town fees. Obviously, these are fees that the Board of Selectmen assess at some point in the near future. When I say near future, I mean before the end of the calendar year. I will very likely be bringing forward a comprehensive list of our permitting fees and any other fees that are applicable. The board adjusted them 2 years ago. And bringing the fees forward doesn't necessarily imply I'd be looking for adjustments, but to just make you aware of where we are and perhaps do a comparison around, with some comparable area
Sure.
towns. But for tonight, I don't think we've ever shown you in one place before what all the various fees are. So without rereading the entire list to you, the only thing that's new is at the very bottom, for a filming license, the amount of $500 I would propose. And that's due to, we have had, as well as other towns have had, outfits like Showtime and Netflix come in and film portions of a series here. As recently as July, Showtime was here for a week and a half at the high school. We've had Netflix in town before that. Other area towns have implemented a filming license. It's not a great deal of money, but it's an opportunity to get a little bit of money from a new resource. I certainly don't think $500 would drive Netflix or Showtime away if they're looking to do some filming. If this is something that you are supportive of, and I hope you are, I can come back at the next meeting with a proposed policy, policy in the sense of what the fee covers. But I haven't done that yet because I wanted to make sure that you were okay with the concept before we put any effort into it.
Yep, that's fine.
As I said, it's been done in other towns. So I think what I'm looking for tonight is for you to vote to affirm the fee schedule as presented. As I said, I'm not looking to increase any of the liquor licensing fee or the common vic fee or anything like that tonight. It's really, I don't think you've ever seen this all in one place before, and it seemed like a good opportunity to get you current and to include the filming license.
Yep.
So Don, there are no comparisons here with other towns? You're saying we're going to do that later?
The comparisons that I've done, and I'm working off the top of my head, Jenny, if I misstate something, please correct me. I believe Stowe is $100. I believe Harvard is $500, but I think they can do that for multiple days. But at least, and I consider an event to be one arrival, one series. That's not a daily thing. I don't know if Lancaster has a fee or not. Those are the three area towns that I know have been fairly involved with this. So this is in the realm of what other towns have done. Doesn't exceed anything that any of the other towns have done.
Yeah, it seems to me that the filming license should either be per day or for a set number of days. Charging someone $500 to do one weekend and then charging the same $500 to do 2 weeks. It seems like a missed opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe you could have a range.
Yeah. We discussed different options. We discussed, X number of days with a cap. So, not to exceed, just for the sake of a number, if somebody were here for multiple weeks even, I mean, if we didn't exceed 1 week, it could be $500 a day, not to exceed $2,500 for 5 business days, or, seven,
They still have to pay for the police details and anything else. If they're going to use town facilities, there's going to be a rental fee for that, so on and so forth, right?
Yes, when they were at the high school, for example, they paid for all police details, all fire details. They paid their tent fee. They paid the school district for the use of the place and everything that they did down there. I believe it was a flat $50,000
Okay.
for their time at the high school. So yeah, I mean, this is a starting point. I'm obviously would like to hear all your thoughts, but I would definitely, I wanted to get the conversation started tonight.
Can I add one tidbit? This fee I would see covering people that are filming on private residences in town as well. And we currently, actually, as of this afternoon, just got a permit request for a generator for an entity that's doing some filming at a business in town. So I would ask the board if they were to make a decision on this particular fee, if I should be reaching out to that entity to reclaim this fee from them.
Don, how do you distinguish between this and a wedding photographer then?
Well, that's easy. This would be for a production company. It's not for something like that. It's not for a private function. This is for a commercial production company. It also wouldn't be for, college or high school students that are working on a documentary or something like that. That's not the intent.
It would include commercials?
Commercial for-profit
Okay.
production companies.
No, it's not just the streaming services. It could be for people making commercials in town.
Well, I didn't intend to use the word in that way, but yes, it could.
Okay.
When I say commercial, I mean you're a commercial business.
It's for profit.
For profit, yes.
Yep.
But if like Bolton Orchards is filming a commercial for themselves, that wouldn't be what we're talking about.
Oh, no, absolutely
No,
not. No,
Right.
no, absolutely no, not my intent at all.
I guess, I think the filming license fee is a good idea. And, the multiple days, for long shoots, I think it should be more than 500. I would just like to know on the other fees where we stand related to, the 5 or 8 towns that we compare ourselves to as well.
As far as the alcohol licenses, et cetera?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's the asterisk there for all alcohol. Is that's just for charity or nonprofits?
For a one-day liquor license, yes. That's a
Okay.
one-day function, yes.
So that's just for all alcohol or also wine and malt?
Now, the wine and malt is 25 and the all alcohol would be 50.
But is the wine and malt only available for nonprofits or is that available to?
Oh, no,
other-
I may have not answered the question you asked. I may have answered the question I thought you asked. So let me take a step back. A one-day liquor license could be for a nonprofit. It could be for a private party. Generally speaking, it's for a nonprofit, but I can't tell you 100% of the time that's what it's for. I mean, for example, the Lions Club may be looking to do a fundraiser. So they may go to some place that doesn't have a liquor license and look to have a one-day event. Or what they could also do is they could seek a one-day liquor license at some venue and have some experienced person come in and do it. I've seen that happen before too, but I'd say 95% of the time it's for a nonprofit fundraiser. Or some business and one example that I can use that actually happened was before Slater's got their liquor license, they would have special events there at the restaurant. And they had no alcohol. So he would get a one-day liquor license for a special event. Now he's a for-profit business, but he's certainly entitled to do that if he meets all the criteria. So that would be one example.
Yeah, I just wonder if it's for profit, if those fees are too low. But I'd like to see some comparisons on that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this was really educational for you and to get some feedback from the three of you as to what your thoughts were. So I think I've got them, and And I'll come back, hopefully by the next meeting. If I'm still working on the comps, it may take until the first meeting in October, but I'll come back with that.
Well, just so everyone knows, with the exception of potentially the filming license, the fees here are already existing established fees, are they not?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Yes.
already established fees.
Everything except the filming license is
Right.
current fees.
Right, right. So this is not, we're not proposing these. This is
No.
already on the book.
These are in place right now.
Okay. And what do you need? Do you want us to vote on this?
No, not yet, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I wanted to get your feedback.
Okay,
I think I'm pretty clear on what you're looking for.
okay,
And I'll be back soon at a subsequent meeting
okay.
with more detail.
All right, sounds good. All right, thanks so much, Don.
Thank you.
All right, next is an update on Keep V. Nyland et al. Appeal.
Well, as many of you are aware, back in, I think it was late June, Mr. Keep filed a lawsuit against the planning board and a family in town appealing a decision that the planning board had made on a permanent issue. Shortly after that lawsuit was filed, I'm just going to take out my earpiece here. Shortly after that lawsuit was filed, the family engaged a lawyer who then, with the town's support, challenged the validity of that lawsuit as to whether or not it actually rose to the level of being a legitimate lawsuit. A hearing was held on that question of, is this really meet the standards of a lawsuit or not? A hearing was held on the 24th of August. The following week, a decision was rendered that said, no, this does not meet the standards of a lawsuit. Mr. Keep's lawsuit was dismissed. The planning board's decision holds, and the family can go ahead with their building project. In the course of preparing for that lawsuit, the town spent just over $1,200 in legal fees, in addition to which the town administrator and the town planner had to spend many hours gathering materials and records to support the town's defense of the lawsuit. Given the nature of the lawsuit, it was an unnecessary expense. And it probably cost the town, I think it cost the town more to defend against that lawsuit than it did Mr. Keep to pursue it. He filed the lawsuit under his own signature, did not engage a lawyer to file the lawsuit. And when it came time to appear before the judge and defend the validity of his lawsuit, he did not engage a lawyer then either. He defended it himself. Actually, according to what the judge wrote in the decision, he didn't even argue on the matter before the court. He talked about why he brought the lawsuit. In light of that, the members of the select board have inquired as to whether or not the town could recover these legal fees from Mr. Keep. And the advice we got is it would cost us more than $1,200 to do that. So I would just hope that Mr. Keep would reimburse the town for this because it was an unnecessary, frivolous lawsuit.
Anything else, Mr. Sikansky?
No.
Okay, all right. Mr. Keep, do you have anything that you'd like to say in regards to this particular topic and what Mr. Sikansky has provided to the board?
Yeah, I'd just like to correct a few things. First of all, I appealed a decision of the planning board, and in the judgment, it was found that I am not, I do not have standing because I'm not in a butter. But that's not settled law. A butter can be 300 feet, 500 feet, or a mile. And one of the ways we know this isn't settled is that, you know, if that were the only issue, then I would have had to have proved when I filed my appeal that I was an abutter within 300 feet of the property. So in the dismissal of my case, it was just based on whether I was an abutter or not. It was not based on the merits of the case. From my understanding, the town could have let the defendants, and that means the family in question, could have let them defend it on their own. I guess the decision was made. It wasn't made by the law committee because I'm not aware, I'm on the law committee. I'm not aware of a meeting where it was voted to spend money to defend this case. Typically it's left to the defendants, the ones who requested a special permit to defend themselves. So I don't know how that decision was made, but I assume it was made by you, Stan, and you, Bob, in coordination with Don Lowe and town council, but that's on you.
Well, I'd like to address that because when you filed this lawsuit, as you pointed out, you are on the law committee, and the law committee oversees the lawyers and the work of the lawyers, just as the Board of Selectmen oversees the work of the town administrators. You put the lawyers and the town administrator in a situation of potential conflict of interest where they had to go. We didn't tell them to do anything. They had to go and file their own paperwork in order to clear up and declare a potential conflict of interest. We had multiple lawyers do that, and we had to have Mr. Lowe do it with the lawyer's help. That was a large part of that expense.
Well, Mr. Sikansky, if I might chime in, I believe Mr. Keep's lawsuit also engaged the planning board. So Mr. Keep also litigated against the planning board. So when a citizen litigates against a duly elected public body, it's the obligation of the town to defend that public body. So it's not a decision that Stan or Bob or Don made. Mr. Keep, you litigated against the planning board in addition to the residents.
Yeah, Stan, that's how you appeal a planning board special permit decision. That's the legal process. You appeal, it's the defendant, so it's the family, and it's also the planning board. That is the process. You can't get around that.
Right, Mr. Keep, just for my edification here, could you give me an understanding of your legal background and preparation so I can properly judge the things you're telling us this evening?
That's another fact in this. I can represent myself in an appeal of this type.
I never said you couldn't. I asked about your legal training. Could you just tell us what your legal training is?
Bob, I'm telling you that any individual can appeal a decision of the plan, a special permit decision of the planning board. And I did that as an individual, and I did it as a matter of conscience, and that's all I have to say.
I'm not disputing your right to do it. I'm just asking what your legal
training is. I think you are, Bob. Bob, I think you are. It's part of our legal system.
You have spent many times tonight ascribing motives to people that you do nothing about.
I did something legal. It's something I'm allowed to do, and I did it. And I know you don't like it, but that's on you.
Mr. Lowe, if perhaps we could clear this up. I believe Mr. Keefe made the statement that it was entirely up to the town to decide to jump in the pool in this process. That he's claiming that it could have been the private citizens themselves. But my understanding is that the lawsuit was not only against the individual residents, but it was also the planning board. So in that case, does not the town have the obligation to defend the planning board against such lawsuits?
Yeah, that's actually why I raised my hand. You know, I'm not looking to jump into the debate here, but I did want to comment on that. The name of the lawsuit is Keep v. Nyland et al. And the planning board members are named individually in the appeal. Therefore, it is technically a lawsuit involving a town board, in this case, the planning board. Town council had a role to play. They played a secondary role. They didn't represent the plaintiff's interests. I'm sorry, the defendant's interests. They monitored the situation to make sure that the planning board's interests were upheld. So what we saw was again, legal counsel playing a secondary role here. They played no role in representing the defendants, but they did monitor the situation. They attended the Zoom hearing, Zoom virtual, however they did it, and did some prep work in reviewing the case as far as what the planning board's actions had been. So that is why and that doesn't require a vote of the law committee. It's the obligation of the town to make sure any town board has the appropriate representation, whatever it may be. And in this case, monitoring it as a secondary or shadow council is what they did, but it was only to make sure that the planning board's interests were represented.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe.
Are you going to appeal the land court's decision against you?
What?
Are you going to appeal the land court's decision against you?
Yeah, I mean, I love that you put this on the agenda. I've had a conversation with you about it. This is something I've done as an individual. And
Mr. Keefe, you mentioned in your lawsuit that you were on the Board of Selectmen. You are tainting
Bob,
my reputation.
Bob, that's a statement of fact.
You are tainting my reputation.
Facts.
That's a statement of fact.
Okay, I'm done talking about this. Let's move on.
Mr. Kansky, you done?
Yes.
Yep. And Mr. Keefe, you can make the check out to the town of Bolton. That'll work just fine. Up next is a request for a letter of support for the Nashua, Squanacook, and Nisissit Wild and Scenic Rivers Forest Legacy Program application. It's quite a mouthful. I would say I'm all for it. I have no, sure. And we have the letter of support right in front of us. Look at that.
So there was also a map, Jenny, that showed the two parcels. Is that right?
I haven't seen a map.
It was sent out late today.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is great. And does it mean that the landowners, the private citizens in Bolton have agreed to put their lands into this program?
That map was shared with the board, but it's not public at this time. I think some of the information is still embargoed.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't know if that's the right term.
No, it's wonderful. And I just like to, if the landowners are interested, I would love to know who they are that they are preserving open space in Bolton, because that benefits all of us.
And I think if you reach out to Rebecca, she might be able to give you more details
Okay,
than I could provide.
well, when it all becomes public, that'll be
Mhm.
great. Yep, I support it.
All right, so I will move that we authorize the chair of the select board to write a letter of support for the Nashua, Squanacook, and Nissitissit Wild and Scenic Rivers Forest Legacy Program application.
Second,
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Roll call, Sikansky,
aye,
Keep,
aye.
Waisaki.
Aye.
Great, and I'll have that in the yellow folder for you, Stan.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, next up is to approve the bills and the payroll warrants for W-22-4, W-22- well, in my packet, it says W-22-4 twice. Is it A, I would assume? W-22-5 and W-22-5A. So
There should be an A, yes.
yeah, so one of the fours is a 4A. Do I have a motion to approve?
so moved.
Second,
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye,
aye.
Aye. And do we have any minutes?
Roll call, Sikansky.
Sorry.
aye,
That's okay. Keep,
Aye.
Waisaki.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right,
And
next up, minutes.
We do have two sets of minutes, August 9th, 2021 and August 19th, 2021. I don't know if Bob had a chance, since he didn't get the other email I sent late in the afternoon, to review the August 9th minutes, so I'm happy to hold those till the 23rd. But the
Yeah,
August 19th, I received no
I didn't see it.
comments. Okay, so we could just vote on August 19th, 2021.
Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye,
aye.
Roll call, Sikansky,
aye,
Keep,
Aye.
Waisaki.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. Next up is, we actually will have a executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A for purposes 2 and 3. The first purpose, to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, the town administrator, and to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for the Teamsters Union Local 170 and the Bolton Police Union Local 286 IUPA AFL-CIO, as the chair finds that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the board's bargaining position. The other thing will be to review and approve executive session minutes of June 3rd, 2021. The board will return to open session for the purposes of adjournment only. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
so moved.
Second,
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Aye,
Roll call, Sikansky,
aye.
Keep,
Aye.
Waisaki.
Aye.
And the time for the record is 9:22 p.m.
Great.